highlight Race's deck, who was one of the 3 players that brought the deck. And how it effectively works.
Sure. Really powerful is the secondary and tertiary deck. You might expect that. I saw Slissa was able to climb to rank 2 legend, where she made a 16.
Once I saw the list, I tried to jam as many games as I could, and I was having success against Mage, but it's not by any means a hard counter, I would say, because they can still do things that you just don't have the answers to if you don't find it early. And JustSaiyan only has 1 copy of Equality in his list, which having repeated removal effects for those wide board states is pretty crucial. But as we get into this matchup, it's pretty straightforward for Purple. It's just about finding a way to build a big board early. Now, Purple, you can tell that he wasn't expecting Holy Wrath Paladin, because pretty much all of his techs in his main deck are for the mirror matchup. He's got double Snap Freeze, which is a way to easily deal with a big threat on his opposing side. His secondary deck looks like it's targeted at Warriors and Rogues, and his tertiary deck looks like it's targeted at Aggro. So he doesn't have a list designed to beat this deck, which could be the downfall.
That's definitely one of the biggest pros to bringing this Holy Wrath Paladin. TJ, I'm going to take a little bit more of an extreme stance. I think that Holy Wrath Paladin is very favored against Mage. They can't heal above 30. They don't really have armor gain. And more importantly, they're a lot more honest with their damage when they don't directly put fireballs and frostbolts into their deck list. Instead, they have to hope that they get it off of a magic trick scenario or off of a mana cyclone, big swing turn. They don't do anything for like 4 or 5 turns now.
Yeah.
And also, Saiyan has that copy of Equality. You were mentioning that there's only 1 Equality, but a lot of the deck lists I saw on Ladder, they actually cut Equality because they were afraid of even more aggressive stuff
yeah, that's why the Bloodsoaked Corsair is there as well for Saiyan, because he expected that. And
like back then when Rogue had double waggle, you would have.
Yeah. And I do agree with you. I think it is a very good matchup, and I think it's made even better by the fact that Purple has Frost Novas and Snap Freezes, which are basically going to be dead cards. On Ladder, it's a much different story. You run into more questing adventures, which you may be forced to use removal on early. You're faced with just more kind of big stuff. Astromancers thrown in, which can build a medium-sized board, which you don't want to use removal on, but sometimes they're forced to. Those types of situations. Against Purple, I think he's... Okay, I think he's, yes, very favored.
Yeah, before this Sandbinder draw, I was very worried for Purple because he just had a normal reactive mage hand. But now that he has his Elemental, which is almost guaranteed to be drawn because he had the first mana cyclone in his hand, Purple actually has multiple routes to potential victory. However, Saiyan already has that Pyromancer, that Shrink Ray. Shrink Ray has largely replaced a lot of the equalities in these controlled defensive paladins. And for good reason, obviously, because Equality costs 4, but Shrink Ray has the added benefit of just being played as a solo removal card, versus Equality is a combo card.
Yeah. Shrink Ray is not like a full removal, because let's say you Shrink Ray a board full of Mountain Giants, they can still Conjurer's Calling and get the full value back. But, Dan, I will highlight a very interesting win condition for the Mage in this matchup.
Okay.
And that is hard mulliganing for Sea Giant and Conch calling a Sea Giant as early as possible. Hakar the Soul Flare is essentially a hard counter to this deck. And it's not even that crazy of a win condition because of the fact that there's not that many 10 drops in the game. So if you get a Sea Giant down and you Conjurer's Calling it, there's a decent chance that you can get a Hakar. I don't know the exact numbers. But it does make the combo nearly impossible, at least at 100% guarantee for Saiyan. And the earlier you're shuffled in, the more bloods they're going to have in their deck, which means the weirder the timing's going to be because they're essentially never going to have an empty deck unless they can fill up their hand and discard the blood. So it is a very fringe case win condition, but if you're behind, that's what you have to go for. If you feel like they're drawing too aggressively, if you feel like you're not sticking a board, those are the types of things that you have to think about.
All right, so with that setup, maybe we should talk about some of the plays that's actually happening in this spot. No, I think you did a great job breaking it down.
It's not really like the Paladin is just drawing. That's pretty much all that happens in the early game.
Yeah, it's it's definitely a situation where Saiyan could evaluate whether or not he wanted to take the damage last turn. He decided to use his Pyromancer at equality. I think mana efficiency is something that's really important to the Paladin.
Let me think.
When I played this deck, I actually ran into a lot of hand size issues because I wasn't really accounting for the mana expenditure very efficiently. I was being greedy at certain points, like, oh, I'll float 2 mana here and just hero power instead. In this case, Saiyan, he's at full life, practically speaking, and he won't die if he just lets these giants stay on the board, but he does have only 1 Pyromancer left, so if he goes for a Shrink Ray and he doesn't have his Consecration, then next turn is the turn that he has to clear. Wow, timeout in this position. He just wants to use it to gain life and to stop Purple from being able to pressure him.
Yeah, and I mean, this is kind of an awkward situation for Purple because he doesn't want to build too much else on the board because he knows that the removal is there. But at the same time, he wants to have pressure on the board to make sure that he can try and close out the game if Saiyan doesn't have removal. So it kind of puts him in an awkward spot. And I think that's one of the complexities of this Paladin deck is
Job's done.
basically just managing your removal. It's not going too early in on your removal, but managing your life gain and your timeouts. That's probably the hardest part because I think most of the times you see this deck lose, it's because it's like 1 draw away or 2 draws away from being able to go for the combo, and it just can't get there because they didn't manage their removal correctly.
Yep. The one caveat to like all of this is that Saiyan is protecting his life total fairly aggressively, even at 30, which is definitely interesting to me. I think you have to also be very careful with your damage because 25 is obviously a lot of damage, but it's not their entire life totals. And sometimes I've seen ridiculous comebacks from the mage when I'm playing the Holy Wrath Paladin because I forget about the possibility of Ziliax to heal them out of the combo range. So Purple's at 24 right now, but one of the more important things to focus on as Saiyan's going to continue his game plan of drawing, staying alive, and assembling his combo is what is the mage health total actually at? And that's something that's on his mind. It might even be the point where Saiyan avoids hero powering or playing anything because he knows that possibility of Purple healing out of that range. I've gotten screwed because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And also Conjurer's Calling. Like, Conjurer's Calling a certain mana cost to help get mechs. Like, it's actually sometimes better to Conjurer's Calling the Sea Giant because you get a chance of getting Mech Cthulhu and then healing for 13, which was also a very rude awakening at one point. So it's like, wouldn't you Conjurer's Calling the Mountain Giant? It's like, no, actually, the Tip
Move quickly.
Yeah, or Hakar. Like, it's...
or Hakar, you're right.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about in the beginning.
Yeah, it's very interesting dynamic. And also, at the same time, you have to keep in mind the possibility of Archmage Antonitis. Because it goes the same way for the mage. If they get a bunch of fireballs in hand with Archmage Antonitis, they can just not play minions. So then you never have a chance to attack in with Shirvala to get that health boost when you shuffle in, and they're going to die to fireball. So aggressively keeping your life total high, I think is very valuable.
So Saiyan doesn't have card draw in his hand. Instead, he goes for a tempo play, and boy, was that a big swing on the board. 2 humilities in the deck as well for Saiyan, which is an acknowledgement directly to like a mountain giant that doesn't have the Conjurer's Calling. But in this position, ends up comboing very well with the Shrink Ray that was placed turns earlier. Purple looks like he's going for a big Mana Cyclone turn.
Job's done.
Gonna refill his hand, hope for some direct damage, hope for some playmaking abilities in general, because right now his hand is just doing a bunch of nothing. Pocket Galaxy, unexpected results. 2 cards that will be getting buffed in the upcoming event, but not right now. Saiyan picks up Prismatic Lens. Potentially very good card. Also sometimes messes things up if you're not careful.
Yeah.
I've had situations where, like, I drew the Holy Wrath and the Shirvala, and Holy Wrath became 25 mana.
Yeah.
Even though Shirvala costs 0 in the deck, it takes its original mana cost.
I was talking to Saiyan last night a little bit about the deck, just trying to learn as much as possible. It does pick Shirvala and Crystology, so not the biggest deal. But he said the one kind of fancy play that he'll make is just not playing Prismatic Lens if he feels like he's ahead, because he doesn't want to risk having an unplayable card. And even if it's a Crystology, like sometimes early on in the game, that can be pretty devastating because that's 2 additional cycle that you're missing out on because of the fact that you may have played a prismatic lens when you didn't need to.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it's only if you're very far ahead, because a lot of times you can take the risk. And I don't even know if he has that many minions left in his deck that he can draw with the Crystology. I think a Novice Engineer still remains, but only 6 cards left.
Only 6 cards left. A lot of them are just spells. For example, he hasn't drawn his Consecrations yet, which would be very convenient to stop a lot of Purple's pressure. Because Purple seems like, at least in our eyes, it seems like the best thing he can do right now is build a small, wide board, clear off Saiyans, and start pressuring that way. Looking for the unexpected results potentially to be a big game changer here, because Conjurer's Calling does something similar, but obviously uses one of your best resources.
Yeah. Astral Rift could be interesting too, but, you know, very unlikely. There's just a couple of very first case scenarios that would be useful. If you pick up a Combo Disruptor, like, okay, Unseen Saboteur and get a Holy Wrath, right?
Yeah, it looks like Purple just wants more spells as an opportunity to pressure. Maybe gets Fireballs. Maybe gets Pyroblast. I've seen all kinds of ranges. So Saiyan does not have any more card draw that isn't Holy Wrath, which is his second copy. He needs to hold on to it. Ziliax.
But he's got time. He's got timeout and he's got Shrink Ray, so effectively 2 more turns to buy with only 5 cards left in his deck. So,
oh, that's a stinger.
Yeah. Now, I don't think it was likely that he would get back up above 25 anyway.
You never know. I mean, the idea is that Saiyan can't clear Ziliax, so if Purple played it,
he would have to attack 3 times with it.
Right.
Which is the kind of the brutal part of that exchange.
Well, we have, it's kind of like you said, we have Astral Rift, we have other ways to potentially make it work. But no, you're totally right. And it's also like these small possibilities that Mage has to account for. Like, if you do play Conjurer's Calling, do you get a Lifesteal minion? When you play Unexpected Results, do you get anything with spell damage? Instead, he actually gets a quite useless minion, Ancient Watcher. And he doesn't have any weapon to ability attack to summon pirates, so
yeah,
not that great. Consecration draw, but there's 2 of them in the deck, and Same was at 5 cards remaining, so totally fine here. Purple's on a very tight clock here.
Yeah, I mean, really the only threat he has left remaining is Archmage Antonidas. He might have another Mountain Giant too, but Archmage is the big one. And at this point, I just don't think he has enough time to get to that point. And not only just get to that point, but also to be able to play Archmage Antonidas, get the Fireballs, and then unleash enough to put Saiyan under pressure with timeout and only 3 cards left in deck.
Another Consecration here would just be mint for Saiyan. This is the only copy of Hammer of Wrath. A little bit less on the greedy side. Baleful Banker number 2 needs to hold on to that. And with the Shrink Ray here and the timeout next turn, should be able to get him directly to the guaranteed 25. Trades off into one of the minions, so that way if Purple plays a single spell, the Pyromancer ends up killing everything on the board, so Purple would have to Conjurer's Calling the Pyromancer. Everything looks good for Saiyan. Almost an inevitability here unless Purple can come up with something big. Another possibility is Counterspell, but both Mana Cyclones have been used already. Purple going for the Miracle draws here. Finds Antonidas.
Too late.
It's just a little bit too late for now. I mean, we're just wondering if there's any last possibility here, and so is Saiyan. I think he's... It's timeout that we were alluding to, but just hesitating to see if there's any other possibility.
Yeah.
There's actually no even real need to hero power here. You give your opportunity something to do ridiculous.
Aha!
Purple just hero powering his Antonidas here. It's largely inconsequential no matter what he does. But Saiyan testing for the counterspell, even coincidentally testing for Spellbender, sees that it's Mirror Entity. that's going to be 25. Game number 1, over to the Paladin. And this is what we were talking about. Mage is doing great so far, but we feel like in America's region, the win rate for Mage is going to be very low because a lot of players were expecting it, and Saiyan gets his first win in the Hearthstone Grandmasters system.
Yeah, and that's kind of...
Look at it. Seemed like he's chosen his secondary deck. Playing 1/1s, if you play Acidic Swampoos, that's just way better than a Snap Freeze.
Absolutely.
Or even just a Harrison Jones as a 5-mana 5/4. That's better than a Frosto.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like I'll take any or all of that. However, looking at Purple's opening hand, he's on the coin. He has the Mountain Giants. He doesn't have, one of the more interesting things is the departure from Book of Specters because of how big that they are on Mana Cyclones. So that's why a lot of times this deck, people say that you don't really have to expect anything for the first 5 turns, and you're really capitalizing on the fact that they're gathering up for a big tempo swing, and that plays directly into the Paladin's hands.
Yep, and saying early game plan, sure. Draw some cards.
Crystology's so good, and it's going to get even better.
1 mana, Dan. Hearthstone will never be the same again.
I mean, it's Crystology. I was talking to Cable Economics, I was like, Crystology was already like one of, if not Paladin's, just best card from the most recent expansions of the past year, and it just got buffed to be twice as effective, which is ridiculous if you really think about it. People look at some of the more heavy hitting legendaries in the past as we come up on this turn. Purple looks like he has this Mountain Giant set up this turn. Some of the most insane discounts like Preparation and Innervate were always the measuring stick for things like Emperor Thaurissan, right? Like Emperor Thaurissan is like, wow, you get 5 Innervates in your hand. And the reason why it was super effective was because of the discount on cheap stuff.
Yep.
When you discount something from 10 to 9 mana, it's a 10% increase. When you decrease something from 2 to 1, that's doubling its effectiveness, right, in terms of its mana discount. And sometimes, of course, going from 1 to 0 is just insanely powerful. So I anticipate Crystology to be nuts, if not just flat out broken. TJ.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Holy Wrath Paladin is really the only deck that uses it right now, but I can see it being incredibly powerful in the future. And honestly, one thing I want to talk about is Holy Wrath Paladin probably isn't going to be a deck that you can keep bringing week to week.
Yeah.
As soon as people expect it, there are a lot of hard counters to it. Basically, any neutral card that can heal you above that 25 health, Unseen Saboteur later in the game, pretty much regardless what it pulls out is going to be a big deal. There's just a lot of ways you can account for it with a secondary and tertiary deck. So very bold call bringing it, something that we can't kind of understate for the 3 players that did so this week.
All right, so a little bit of interesting play patterns are already here from Saiyan. He didn't choose to answer the first Mountain Giant. Instead, he chose to Holy Wrath for card draw and staying on curve. And I think, again, this is credence to, 1, understanding that you can play with your life total. 2, he has Crystal Smith Kangor, so he can restore a little bit of its health already back onto the board. And then, 3, he already has better removal tools lined up with Equality and the Shrink Ray and 2 timeouts. So even in pinch scenarios, he should be fine. Like in this spot here, you can actually just go for a Pyromancer clear with Equality. He goes for a timeout. He's even greedier. So this is interesting because last time he went against 1 Mountain Giant and 1 Conjurer's Calling, and then he used the Pyromancer Equality. And I thought that was more for mana efficiency. What's with the timeout here, TJ, you think?
So this is, like I said, one of the harder things to recognize is when to go in on removal. I think Saiyan's realizing very quickly that there's a good chance that Purple has gone with his secondary deck here. And that means he's going to have more waves of removal. And this timeout here just buys him a ton of time. Reason being is because he can always just load up with the removal next turn and timeout later in the game. While it can buy you time, it also can kind of force Purple or just saying to force Purple's hand and make him play more stuff to try and have more pressure on board. Saiyan knows that his deck has so many ways to deal with these big boards. There's one picked up. If he humilities one of these Mountain Giants, then he does have a chance to even buy more time. I imagine we're going to see the trigger pulled on removal here, but he does have that option. And also, we talked about in the last game, preserving your life total and keeping it high is honestly a very big thing because of the possibility of Archmage Antonitis.
Right.
Now, the second one, I guess all of the same logic applies to the second one, but the second one is where
it's just getting more debatable.
Yeah, I'm scratching my head a little bit.
I mean, I totally understand Saiyan's rational logic. Like, it's not even Antonitis. It's just more like if they get you within that like 12 to 15 range. We've seen Mana Cyclone end the game too, with just getting direct burn. I mean, Purple picked up a pair of Frostbolts last game, even with just like 3 or 4 cards of Mana Cyclone. Wow, a 2-card Mana Cyclone. Freeing up his hand because he does want to draw the Antonitis in case. But now this is absolutely grounds for Saiyan to clear a quality consecration. The original iconic duo, not quite as fast as it was past days, but still very effective. And Saiyan still also has the Shrink Ray consecration.
My calculations are flawless.
Oh, that's a big boy.
Hello.
That's exactly what Purple is looking for. I think that's actually just the straight-up best outcome possible.
Yeah, I mean, JustSaiyan's early game plan to try and protect his life total now just kind of in the dumpster, and Purple has double Conjurer's Calling still in hand. Well, triple, honestly.
Right, but he lost both of his Mountain Giants, I believe.
He did use both Mountain Giants, so he has Astromancer and he has a Sea Giant. Oh, no, he cut his Sea Giant.
Cut his one
Astromancer and Twilight Drake has his threats left. And maybe that's where Saiyan's mind was with the double timeout. He saw the expenditure of both Mountain Giants. He realized that there's only a limited amount of threats that Purple could have.
It's true.
So if he preserves his life total, that gets rid of the outs of burn damage from hand.
Yeah, I like that. Wow, this turn's going to be absolutely insane for Purple because he's going to have Mana Cyclone. And now he might be able to pick up even more damage. His counter spell is also very annoying for Saiyan because he has to account for all the possibilities. Okay, Conjurer's Calling. I mean, the Arcane Intellect's okay. Polymorph might actually be better than you might think it is. Oh, hey, Mana Worm.
Yeah,
not
Mana
bad
Worm
either.
is actually sick.
Yeah, Mana Worm's really good.
Especially considering JustSaiyan, well, I guess he has Blood Mage Thalnos plus Consecration, but he's got to make the decision here. Do I Humility?
Yes, very smart. Testing the Counterspell and the Spellbender just in case. Not that Spellbender would affect too much, but his AoE was very nice for Saiyan. Twilight Drake.
I mean, it's something to do, right? Like that, he's just running low on threats, and I honestly think he might even... Oh, okay.
Second Mana Cyclone.
Well, I was thinking he might Arcane Intellect here to try and find the second Astromancer.
I like this, too. Blast Blade to get more spells to potentially damage your opponent.
Yeah.
Because, like, again, if he has a Pyroblast, he's a lot closer than he thinks. So I was kind of mentioning the polymorph. I don't know if I finished that thought, but it's like the idea is that Saiyan does always have these weird pinch scenarios where he can use like the Servala to heal, and then you can use polymorph to stop the second form of healing, right? If you don't have the removal spell. So Saiyan picks up Servala, does have Baleful Banker, doesn't need to pull the trigger on it just yet. He's fairly close. He's 3 cards away.
And he's got a few turns to buy, right? Because he has Wild Pyromancer plus Shrink Ray.
Been hanging out with your son a little bit too much, GJ.
Shrink Ray.
Oh, your baby.
He can't even talk yet, man. No,
That's what you think.
I talk to him like an adult. He pays rent.
Wow, TJ's a strict landlord here.
That's right.
What does he pay his rent in? That's what I want to know. Is it dirty diapers?
Yeah. It's poop, Dan.
Oh, God. Conjurer's Calling on the 4-mana minions to improve the power of the board. Goes from 4 to 9. That's definitely a start. I think Saiyan would like to clear this board, would like to stay alive for 2 more turns. He does have, like, the soft guarantee of surviving because he can Servala and Baleful Banker and go for it again.
Yep. He also has the emergency out of Servala double Baleful Banker and then Holy Wrath for the 2 and 3.
I've seen those before.
Yeah. It's a last-ditch effort because that's everything, right? Unless your Shivala sticks and you can attack multiple times, which is very unlikely.
Well, sometimes they have double Holy Wrath, so what they do is they go for Shivala, double shuffle, and then Holy Wrath twice in a row when they have like 4 or 5 cards remaining.
Yeah. Oftentimes.
Wow! Sorry. Just Knife Juggler with the, yeah, it works out really well.
I mean, it's direct damage. I mean, it's a weird way to get direct damage.
Yeah.
Oh, Spellzerker is very interesting.
Yes.
If
But
you
it doesn't
pick-
have any damage spells.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a way to generate
I'm
any damage
almost out of
spells. That's the
cards.
problem.
Ziliax. So Shivala and Ziliax and Baleful Banker, all the lifesteal that you could ask for. I mean, Saiyan practically goes up to full life.
It's time to test true metal.
And Purple doesn't have the opportunity to capitalize on his Ziliax either because of all the damage. You know, I really like the way Saiyan has played this because the way he's like squeezed in points of damage on Purple just means that he has less outs and he's forced to even go more all in on the spell plan.
Yeah.
And Purple looks like he's just stranded. Like, Khadgar's cool, but he has no way to capitalize onto it. He has the double Ray of Frost and the Polymorph to stop any further healing from the Paladin. But, you know, that's 6 mana investment already. That's not even a winning play. He might have to go for something bigger with Frost Nova maybe to freeze and then go for something else. It's very difficult from Purple spot.
Yeah, but regardless of all of that, I mean, Saiyan has just a 50-50 chance to win just next turn, right? Because if he doesn't draw Servala, that's the only card left in his deck, and he can Holy Wrath. Maybe he can try and bait an attack, because if he sets up Ice Barrier and Saiyan attacks into it with one of his minions, with a 1/1, even then, though, he would deal the 1 damage, so he'd be exactly 25. So his best chance is to try and bluff the counterspell again,
Right.
but JustSaiyan has humility again and draws the Shivala, so...
That's, I mean, Saiyan's going to test Splitting Image here with the attack, see that it's not. He might test the...
I don't think you test counterspells.
Yeah, you don't need to test it until you're going for the winning move.
Yeah, because what if he has 2 counterspells? They're still randomly generated spells in here.
Exactly.
So just smart play overall.
Oh, Fatigue. Antonidas plus Ray of Frost. Great combination, but Purple knows that he's dead anyways if he goes for it. Tries to get a little bit deeper. We know that Purple doesn't have the second Mana Cyclone because he did play the Sandbinder.
Yeah.
Finds nothing. And I think Purple finds his Ziliax to no avail. No mech, no ability to heal out of it. And obviously, Saiyan's not silly enough to play into the Ice Barrier anyways. I think Purple's hoping for some kind of miracle mistake here from Saiyan, but I don't think Saiyan's going to fall for it.
Yeah. Has the humility to test for counterspell. That's all he needs. And Purple throws out the well played. A much different story than last week for both of these players. Saiyan 2-0.
Yep, and I think this is just going to be the beginning of the domination of Mage. I know everyone and their grandmother are writing about how powerful Mage will be and how it's just going to be extremely oppressive, but Holy Wrath Paladin absolutely crushes the Mage from my perspective.
Yep.
And I think this is going to be a theme of today, TJ. Saiyan cruises to a fast 2-0 victory.